English translation, 479th contact. Saturday, 5th September 2009, 12:11 hours.
Greetings, Ptaah, dear friend. Have you been waiting long?
No, because I also came only 2 minutes ago, Edward, my friend.
You had Florina tell me she is proofreading with Bernadette and me today because you cannot stay long?
That is true, because I am very busy.
Then may I ask you something right now?
Of course, but I have something personal to discuss with you before I have to leave again.
My first question is about Saturn and the Outer Ring. Can we talk about it now?
The time has come, yes.
On my great journey, you said that this outermost and very thin and gigantic ring of Saturn will be discovered by terrestrial astronomers around mid-2009. However, I have not yet heard or read anything about it, so astronomers have probably still not discovered it, even though it has a gigantic diameter of about 30 million kilometers.
The time has come, I said so.
Good. As you know, I answered a bulletin question regarding the Mayan calendar. Although I stayed factual, more questions have come up now, because unreasonably, certain human beings simply fabricate fear out of everything and imagine horror scenarios. It is simply crazy, because many people are not able to process simply given explanations, etc. in a rational way, but fall into fear and panic through stupid thoughts and fantasies. So I think that in the November special bulletin I will go back to the Mayan calendar and explain again that 2012 will also be a year like any other year before and after. Even if there are big events in 2012, they are also not geared towards an end of the world and such nonsense. Even if nature, through the fault of human beings, goes crazy in terms of climate, and also in other ways, and great natural disasters are announced, everything takes place in a framework in which there is not room for an end of the world. In principle, the natural disasters are of course intensifying, but this is not exceptional anymore for a long time. And what happens with the activity of the sun, which reaches its 11-year cycle in 2012, is not really unusual either, apart from the fact that this time will be a very strong phase. And as I mentioned in my bulletin response, with regard to the Mayan calendar, 2012 will bring a whole series of very special events. I have written the following.
And the central star of our system, the Sun, will also contribute to this, because huge eruptions will occur on the surface of the Sun, and will cause solar storms, which will be very intense, and will also affect the geomagnetic balance of the Earth. Very strong X-rays reaching the Earth can cause the magnetic field to fluctuate very strongly. And geomagnetic storms can cause the collapse of power grids and all electronic equipment, including satellites and the ISS, which can be severely damaged or even fail completely. Such solar storms can lead to enormous natural disasters, but in the worst case, also to a reversal of the Earth's magnetic field. It must also be said, however, that such solar storms form in a precise rhythm every 11 years to a climax, which is normal, although it may occur with exceptional intensity in 2012. The Earth is therefore likely to come under a heavy bombardment of hard radiation, which can also have a very negative effect on the Earth's ozone layer. The whole process that results from this can lead to the formation of nitrogen oxides and acid rain worldwide, which can have evil and destructive effects on the entire plant world. The enormous solar flares can lead to further very strong climate changes on Earth, and thus also to enormous droughts, storms, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, failed harvests, and thus to even greater famines than those already existing. Beside all this, the year 2012 will bring other unpleasant things, such as a hitherto unknown, invisible, dark and huge space wanderer, threatening from the edge of our solar system, who could cause tremendous harm to the Earth. And if this should actually happen, then the fact of its existence would only become apparent from about 2010 or 2011, if at all, because the possibility of a dark and therefore not detectable passing of the Colossus is also possible. Furthermore, the year 2012 is threatened by all kinds of unpleasant machinations in terms of discord, severe warlike actions in a worldwide manner, as well as further increasing degeneration and exaggeration of human behavior, all these things being of particular evil.
What is going to happen in this regard? The year 2012 will prove, but it must be said that these are natural processes, as they have been occurring again and again since time immemorial, and therefore are not extraordinary. I did not talk about those things that are extraordinary, because you said that I should not do that, and I also think myself that it would be wrong to call them already now, even if these things are not meant to be afraid of. I have briefly mentioned the reference to this with discord, serious acts of war, increasing degeneration and exaggeration of human behavior, etc. To name these extraordinary things is really early enough, just before they arrive, because they also have nothing to do with the end of the world. And as for the dark spacewalker, who, if he were to come near the Earth, could do much harm, is a thing that needs no fear, for he is still very far from the Earth and in the outermost regions of the solar system. It is also questionable whether the Colossus will become visible from Earth at all, and not simply disappear again without a trace on its normal orbit. Earthly astronomers have not yet been able to discover it, to my knowledge either. And what else is to be said about the 21st of December 2012, which is being traded as the end of the world, world change or the new age by prophets of doom, esoterics, panic makers and Mayan calendar believers, etc., is the following. The system of the Mayan calendar is based on Mayan astrological calculations, which are incorporated into a circular triple gear system. The large gear wheel, which has two small outer gears, has a fixed starting point, the same as the larger of the two small outer gears. When these fixed points meet again, which will be the case on the 21st of December 2012, the old calendar is finished, and a new calendar begins by turning the calendar respectively, the calendar gears. The Mayan calendar respectively, the Mayan chronology, comprises a very long period of several thousand years. Not as long as the modern calendars, which are usually designed for only 1 year, starting with the 1st of January and ending with the 31st of December. The Mayan calendar is based on advanced mathematical and astronomical knowledge.
There should be no need to write anything new about it again if you use what you have just explained for a corresponding explanation in the special bulletin you mentioned.
If you think, then okay. Then I would like to ask you about my promise today, which I made to your father Svath, that until the appropriate time I will keep silent about my journey with him to the secret Himalayan place of Changshampala, and the purpose of the Jade Tower at its center, and the Dorje, the Golden Scepter, and the human beings there, etc. Has the time come for me now to report openly on this?
No, the time is still far away, far beyond your lifetime, so the secret will be kept for a very long time, and that is good.
Understood. Then something else. In the past, in psychiatry, so-called electroshock therapy was used and then abolished. Nowadays, they are trying to reintroduce this method as so-called electroconvulsive therapy, or electroconvulsive therapy. What I have seen is not more than a grilling of the brain, and that it can be used to stimulate the growth of nerve cells is completely absurd, as your daughter Simya Se once told me.
This actually corresponds to what you say, because what is called nerve cell growth does not correspond to growth, but only to an artificial stretching of the same by electrical energy. But this does not lead to healing, which is why these electric shocks are completely nonsensical and can even have counterproductive effects.
Straight answer, thank you. What about important predictions? What are the results of earthquakes, seaquakes, and other extraordinary events?
Light earthquakes occur as usual all around the Earth, so also in Switzerland and Europe in general, as well as in many other countries, but this is normal, so they probably don't have to be mentioned. On the 13th of September, however, there is an extraordinary quake that shakes the whole state of Venezuela, although the strength of the quake will only be 6.5. After that, there will be another quake with a magnitude of 6.4 on the island of Bali, although it is important to note that in Indonesia, earth and sea quakes occur again and again. After Bali, the state of Bhutan will be hit by an earthquake with a magnitude of 6.3, causing deaths, but also destruction of monasteries and schools, etc. The next extraordinary event will be the first time that a Swiss-made satellite will be launched from India into orbit around the Earth. This while in Australia, an unusually violent sandstorm is stirring up huge red dust clouds, enveloping large areas and also the city of Sydney in a red veil of dust. Then a series of earthquakes follows. First, a severe seaquake of magnitude 8.3 in the South Pacific, which creates a four-part tsunami that penetrates far into the interior of several Samoa Islands, etc., killing a large number of human lives and causing great destruction, razing entire villages to the ground. Only shortly afterwards, another severe seaquake of magnitude 7.9 occurs in Indonesia, near Sumatra, followed hours later by another severe quake in the same area. All these quakes will kill thousands of human beings and cause great destruction. The first seaquake near Sumatra will be followed by an earthquake in Peru, which will have a magnitude of 6.3. Then, the area of Florida in the USA will also be shaken by an earthquake with a magnitude of 5.6, followed by another seaquake with a magnitude of 6.6 in the South Pacific near Tonga, and then a stronger earthquake in Indonesia with a magnitude of 6.1 in West Papua. And this in addition to all the normal earth and seaquakes that occur daily around the world. And contrary to the assertions of the scientists after the quakes that the series of quakes mentioned above would not show any connections whatsoever, this is not true, because all these quakes have connections with regard to the earth-shaking vibrations that spread all over the world, whereby one quake triggers the next one. Such consequences, and direct ones at that, occur in the quakes from the South Pacific to the Samoa Islands and Sumatra in Indonesia and near Tonga. The earthquakes in Peru and Florida are similar, but only indirectly related to the worldwide earthquake oscillations caused by the Pacific seaquakes. When all these quakes have subsided, a new series of seaquakes will occur in the South Pacific about a week later. First, a seaquake of magnitude 6.7 south of the Philippines, then new seaquakes between the Solomon Islands and Vanuatu, about 270 kilometers from the coasts. The first quakes are the strongest and have a magnitude of 7.8 and 7.7 on the Richter scale, followed by a series of aftershocks of 7.0 magnitude. There is also something extraordinary about the U.S. President Barack Obama, because he will destroy the nonsensical and confused plans of the previous president and warmonger Bush regarding the planned Northeast European missile defense system and annul the whole thing. Then it follows that an important resolution will be passed at the UN Security Council. A resolution which is aimed at the dismantling of nuclear weapons and which goes back to the first efforts of U.S. President Barack Obama in this regard. An act that will be welcomed not only by Russia, but also by various other states. He will be the first president on Earth to act sensibly in this regard and will also receive the Nobel Peace Prize for this. This, however, is not appreciated around the world as it is of correctness. But politicians and journalists, etc., make stupid speeches against Barack Obama and foist it on him that he has to earn the award in the future. but which achievement he achieves just by the fact that for the first time a dismantling of the missile defense system and nuclear weapons comes into international state conversations. This will not be recognized and understood by the stupidity of those who, in their selfishness and arrogance, do not know how to appreciate Obama's achievement. The next great act of an extraordinary event will take place on the 21st to 22nd of September, when for the first time a head of state of Russia, President Medvedev, can be welcomed to Switzerland for a state visit.
Yes, landslides and thunderstorms and hellish storms are not to be mentioned anymore, because they have become commonplace.
Yes, you also reported on this in the 1950s and warned governments worldwide as well as various world organizations and many media, such as radio stations, journals, and newspapers. Had you been listened to then, as well as later, a great deal of evil could have been prevented. Unfortunately, however, in every single case of your educational efforts and your warnings, you were only laughed at, insulted as a nutcase, or simply disregarded, as is also the case today. Today, however, others are coming out into the open and are also making their way into governments to discuss all the problems that you openly addressed decades ago and about which you issued warnings. But furthermore, the problems are not taken seriously as they should be. Generally speaking, only nonsense is decided upon, from which no success is to be expected. And on the other hand, what I find very alarming is that today people are rising up and coming out into the public eye who can only do this because they have rank and name and can make themselves great, while all your decades of efforts are completely ignored and kept quiet. This, even though you are the one who has basically pointed out all the problems that have been spreading worldwide for years now, causing gigantic destruction and costing countless human lives.
That does not bother me. And in other ways, I think it is good that everything is now being talked about at all, even if all the luminaries who make big words only talk and decide nonsense and do not want to admit the real reason for the whole of the worldwide natural disasters, or are too stupid to recognize the reality and its truth, which lies in the overpopulation, which is also constantly growing.
This corresponds to what is real. I would like you to publish what you just said in a bulletin.
I can do that. One question. The Ayers Rock, respectively Uluru in Australia, the red rock giant, do you know its origin? Some crazy phantoms claim that it comes from the world space. But I can't imagine that, because if the Colossus had fallen from the sky, a huge crater would have had to be created. As far as I know, it is about 3 kilometers long, 2 kilometers wide, and 869 meters high. So at least that's what I read recently. Also that it is the oldest mountain on Earth.
That the Uluru is the oldest mountain of the Earth, that is of correctness, but it does not have its origin in the world space, but in the place where it has been since primeval times. At its first time of origin, the place was a primeval sea, in which boulder debris and sand accumulated in a depression, whereby this material condensed and finally petrified together. So the origin, respectively, the emergence of Ayers Rock, is based on enormous compressed petrified masses and material that remained as a mountain when the sea dried up and eroded everything around it.
So it is true what I have read. Thanks for the explanation. It is always good to have a friend who is a lot older than you are, and who has more comprehensive knowledge that goes beyond general education and is based on expertise.
If that was all you wanted to ask?
It was, yes.
Then I have the following of a personal nature to discuss with you.